Welcome learners. This is the second part of this unit which we are going to discuss regarding the role of the school heads in institutional planning. And in the first part of this unit we have discussed what are the steps required for effective institutional planning. And now we are going to discuss why the role of the teacher is important for an institutional planning. What a teacher should do for proper institutional planning. See, we all know the school leaders such as principals, headmasters, superintendents, they hold a central role in the comprehensive scenery of institutional planning within educational organizations. So their role and responsibilities encompass vision setting, where they establish a clear and compelling direction for the institution's future. So, beyond the school walls, the leaders engage with parents, communities, stakeholders, and external partners to build support and collaboration. They also act as the front line in the crisis management and advocate for the school's need at various levels. So, what are actually the role played by the school heads? We are going to discuss in this part of the unit. In the first part, we have discussed the steps to be taken by a school head for making the institutional plan effective, and here we are going to discuss about the role of the school heads in institutional planning. What actually the school head play? We all know they play a pivotal role in the success and effectiveness of educational institutions, and hence their role is very crucial in making the institutional planning a successful one. Firstly, they prepare the vision and mission for the school. The school heads are responsible for developing and articulate the school's vision and mission. The vision and mission serve as a foundation for all other planning activities. So, the school teachers or the head of the institution should prepare a proper vision and mission for making the institution a successful one. Next is the strategic planning. The school heads are the instrumental in formulating the school's strategic plan, and this plan actually outlines the school goals, strategies and action steps over specific period. So the school teachers addresses areas such as curriculum development, student achievement, staff development and infrastructure improvement. So what the school teacher can do in making a strategic plan? They address areas such as curriculum development, student achievement, staff development and infrastructure improvement. Next is budgeting and resource allocation. So school heads actually have a significant role in allocating financial and human resources efficiently. They must plan the budget to support the strategic goals, ensuring that funds are allocated appropriately for appropriate programs, facilities and all for the staff. The third is the curriculum development. So here a very important role is played by the teacher, that is the curriculum, we all know, which is the heart of an educational institution. So school heads work closely with academic staff to design, to revise and implement a curriculum that aligns with the school goals and meets the needs of the student. Next is the professional development. Institutional planning also includes professional development for teachers and staff. We all know which is included in the institutional plan. Now what a school head should do? School head should identify the training areas or identify the training needs of their staff and plan the opportunities for ongoing growth and improvement to enhance teaching quality. Next is staffing and recruitment, which is also a very important role played by a teacher. The school heads are responsible for recruiting and retaining qualified teachers and staff. So this what involves a very strategic plan. So a teacher must also consider succession planning to ensure a smooth transition whenever necessary. So staffing and recruiting teachers and employed teachers, qualified teachers and staff to the institution is very important, and which should be very strategically planned by every head of the institution. Next is the student support services. Planning for student support services is essential. Why a teacher should plan for student support services? Because it provides a well-rounded education. The school heads may oversee the development of counseling program, special education services and extracurricular activities that support students' overall development. Next is the infrastructure and facilities. So maintaining proper infrastructure and facilities and physical infrastructure, providing facilities is an important role to be played by every school heads. So school heads must assess and address the needs of school buildings, classrooms, equipments to provide safe and conducive learning environment. Again, the next is the community engagement. School heads play a role in fostering positive relationship with parents, the local community and other stakeholders. They develop engagement strategies to keep this group informed and involved in the school planning and decision-making process. Next is data analysis and assessment. So we all know effective planning requires collection and analysis of data, such as student performance metrics to monitor the progress towards the school goals. So school heads use this data to make informed decision and adjust plan as needed. Next is the crisis management. So school heads must plan for crisis management. It includes disasters, security threats, health emergencies, any other emergencies created by the situation. So having well-defined protocols and procedures in place is critical to ensure the safety and well-being of the students and staff. So this is the important role to be played by the school head to have a proper crisis management system. Next is the compliance and reporting. School heads are responsible for ensuring the institution complies with local, state, and federal regulations and reporting requirements. This involves planning for periodic assessment, audits, and the timely submission of necessary reports. So these are the various roles to be performed by every teacher. So what are the roles? First is to prepare the vision and mission development. Next is to prepare the strategic planning. Next is to prepare the budget and resource allocation. Then to prepare curriculum development. Then to see the professional development. Then to have a quick look for staffing and recruitment. That means to provide qualified teachers and staff. Then provide student support services, infrastructures and facilities, community engagement, data analysis and assessment, crisis management, compliance and reporting. So these are all the important roles to be played by school heads. So we can say that school heads are the key drivers of institutional planning, and they shape the overall direction and success of the educational institutions. And they are the strong leader. They must have a strong leadership and management skills for clear understanding of the educational landscape and the ability to adapt and innovate in response to evolving the needs and challenges in the field of education. Hence, we can say that effective institutional planning under the proper role and guidance played by a head of the institution can lead to improved student outcome, a positive school culture, and a sustainable educational environment. So this is the overall thing we have discussed in this unit, that is in unit 19. So we have discussed the role of the school heads in institutional planning and the steps for effective institutional planning. So in this part of the unit, the important questions which you need to see, which you need to discuss in this part, we have given in the last part of this unit. So you can go through the questions, and mainly in this part, the questions which are important is to know the role and the role of the teachers, and the steps, mainly the steps for the effective institutional planning. So after going through this unit, you will come to know the entire part of the institutional. These two units will give you the analysis of the institutional planning and the role of the teachers. As you all are teachers, you all are engaged here, so what is your role to be performed in preparing institutional planning? I think these two units will help you to develop as a good teacher, to make your institution a successful one. At the end of this two unit, you can go through this video, which will help or which will motivate you to know something more about the institutional planning. Thank you.
Good evening, my dear female fellows. I'm Rana Sed'i, lecturer of operative dentistry at Ain Shams University. Today I'll be walking you through the role of teacher as a facilitator and mentor. The content of this chapter is taken from the 8 Roles of the Medical Teacher book by Roland Hardin. Facilitation of learning should be the core objective of our teaching strategy. And as Carl Rogers once said, we cannot teach another person directly, we can only facilitate his learning. Facilitation of learning is different from just teaching. So as teaching is a one-directional dissemination of knowledge through a teacher, while facilitation is accompanying and shaping a learning process together, which will unlock the student's potential to learn and guide them in the process. So the teacher is someone who is there to help the student in a very different concept than the teacher that is just there to provide information. So why the switch is not easy? Why we would rather act as an information provider rather than a facilitator? The answer to this is that usually an information provider is more attractive to staff and students, which is due to the lack of the individual awareness. Also, we feel stronger and more comfortable serving as a subject expert rather than responding to the challenge of facilitating the students' learning. Also, it's more familiar and corresponds to what was taught to us as students. Moreover, facilitator usually is perceived as having less power and authority to an expert on information. So why we should act as a facilitator? The role of facilitator can empower both the teacher and the student and can have much greater impact on the student's learning, helping each learner to reach his full potential, create a passion for learning, and an important asset of facilitator is that he provides individualized feedback to his students. So how can we facilitate learning? Robert Hardin elaborated on 4 approaches to facilitate learning, which are clarifying the learning outcome, identifying learning opportunities, engaging the students in the learning, and making learning effective. In the next slides, we will be going through the details of each approach. The first approach, which is clarifying the learning outcome, is based on 2 main pillars, which is the outcome-based education and the outcome-based progression. There have been a move from an emphasis on process and learning experience, such as lectures, small groups, practical activities, and clinical work, to the product or outcome of the education and the learning outcome that is expected from the student and that he will master by the end of this phase of the curriculum, or by the end of the course, or even before graduation. This move to an outcome-based education has been described as the most significant development in medical education over the past 2 decades. While an outcome-based progression is a concept by which you can help students monitor their progress against each of the outcome domains, which is through the use of a milestone. Achievement of the milestone provides a measurable evidence of the learner's progression to the final expected learning outcome. That's why milestone is defined as a definite observed marker of an individual's ability along a developmental continuum. The second approach for learning facilitation is through identifying the learning opportunities. In this approach, we show how that the student can achieve the expected outcome. Students or trainees should be guided on the range of learning opportunities and resources available which might best suit their needs and how and where they can access them. This gives us a rise to the concept of directed or guided self-learning. We have a number of tools that can help identify learning opportunities. The most popular ones are the use of a curriculum map and study guide, which will help direct and guide the learner. A curriculum map is important because it will give the student an overall picture of the curriculum, help them appreciate the expected learning outcomes, and see how these outcomes will be addressed and assessed. It also will help him plan his own study journey and makes the curriculum more transparent to different stakeholders. Also, it will facilitate communication to students about what, when, and where and how they can learn. It will also demonstrate to them how your teaching and your course will fit within other courses and will contribute to the achievement of the expected exit learning outcome. That's why now, with the shifting toward a more centralized and less departmentally based curriculums, the curriculum map will be considered as the glue which will hold the curriculum together and will help the students connect the pieces together. The second tool which can be used is the use of study guides. A study guides can be seen as providing a guided tour of the relevant areas of the curriculum map. The study guide pulls together all the learners should know about a course, what is expected of them, and the learning opportunities available. A study guide should include the following: the importance of the course, what is expected of the learning during the course, the expected learning outcome by the end of this course, an advanced organizer or framework for studying the topic, and the prerequisites and the knowledge and skills that the student is expected to master before the start of the course. It also should include relation to other courses, learning opportunities available, key core references to recommended sources, a glossary or definition of terms used, assessment methods, the provision of opportunities for learning to assess their own achievements, and how to contact a teacher if they have a problem. The third approach is by making learning effective, which can be achieved by applying the FAIR principles, the use of concept maps, and by providing an educational environment supportive of learning. The FAIR principles is based on the provision of feedback to learners, providing active rather than passive learning, individualization of learning, and by making learning relevant. Providing feedback is critical for the educational experience. The feedback provided should be effective, and I will share with you some guidelines on how to make your feedback effective. Your feedback should be timely, should be frequent, should be specific, and should not be limited only when the student is not in his best performance, but also you should compliment the learner when a good performance is identified and to show him how to address and remedy his mistakes. Also, feedback should be a two-way process, not a unidirectional one. So there should be an active conversation between the teacher and the learner. Also, feedback is a mutual responsibility. Learners should be encouraged to reflect on the feedback received and what they will do following the recipient of this feedback. Also, seen from a longitudinal perspective, as it's provided across the curriculum, with learners reflecting on feedback previously provided and understanding the future opportunities for feedback. Also, learners should be encouraged to assess their own performance. The second principle in the FAIR principles is the active learning. Learning is facilitated if learners are actively engaged in the learning process. The activity can take a number of forms. Students can reflect on their experience and learning. They can apply what they already know to a new topic and apply their theoretical knowledge to solving practical problems. Also, they can assess their own competence in an area, for example, by using MCQs or using a checklist. Also, they can be engaged in a practical exercise or a project. And over time, they should build their learning portfolio, which describe their learning experience and demonstrate their achievements of the expected learning outcome. Also, they should share their knowledge with their colleagues. The third principle is individualized learning. Teachers should acknowledge that each student is different and their learning experience is different. They can be different in terms of previous knowledge and understanding, their ability to master a specific learning outcome, and their learning style, pace and preferred time of learning. That's why, to facilitate students' learning, you should help them develop a learning plan which goes in line with their personal learning needs. The last principle is the relevance of teaching. So, clinical correlation is a must for medical science teaching. Students always acknowledge that the introduction to patient in the early years will help them see the relevance of what they are learning. That's why the concept of early clinical exposure is now very popular for students to understand the relevance of what they are taught in the first years of medical school, which is usually dedicated to basic science. The second method to make learning effective is by the use of concept maps. Concept map is a visual representation of information or concepts with links and relationship between the items displayed. The map shows the network of related concepts, and the learner thinks and learns by linking new concepts to what is already known. And it will help him see these pieces as a part of a larger jigsaw. The use of concept map is that it will help students acquire problem solving and critical thinking skills, promote meaningful learning and integration of learning across disciplines, and it will assist students in linking basic science to clinical practice, and it also make their thought process more visible and specific, and will provide them by ways to share their thinking and understanding, and it will specify different and complementary roles of healthcare professionals in interprofessional education, and it would also assess learners' understanding and mastery of an area, and it will help to teach evidence-based medicine. The last method to make learning effective is by creating a supportive learning environment. As a teacher, you can help create a learning environment that is conducive to the students' learning, both in the school in general and in your own course. That's why you should always stop and ask yourself, does the learning environment encourage students to approach you when they have a problem? Does the environment encourage students to collaborate and support each other or to compete? Finally, does the environment encourage students to acknowledge their mistakes or not? The final approach, described by Harden, to facilitate learning is by engaging the students on the curriculum. Learning is a partnership between teachers and students. Supporting and developing this partnership is an essential role for you as a facilitator. That's why student voice should always be heard. And on today's agenda, it is a co-owned education with an expectation that students will take greater responsibility for learning. That's why students should be involved in the decision-making process through membership in committees and faculty boards. By this, we have reached the end of our presentation. Please take your time and reflect on the following. Have you considered the importance of your role as a facilitator rather than simply an information provider? Do your students fully understand and expect the learning outcomes for your course? Do your students make the best use of the learning opportunities and resources available? Have you explored providing learners with study guides to support and facilitate their learning? Is a curriculum map available for learners relating the learning outcome to the learning experience and the assessment? To what extent are the FAIR principles for effective learning incorporated into your teaching? Finally, to what extent are students engaged in your curriculum?